We have returned, my colleagues, we have returned from recess. We will now proceed to the amendment, the amendment authored by Senator Talina, Vice Speaker Talina Nelson and Senator Tello Taidagui. Ma'am, do you want to close or?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I just want to thank my colleagues who contributed to this amendment. It's exactly the intent that we wanted to do. We wanted to make sure that we have, we capture, if there's any excess funds, that it goes directly to the roadways and doesn't get spread across the government for perhaps an additional hire or to pay some other obligation or to fund a special program. We wanted to make sure that the liquid fuel tax is used for what it was intended to be, and that is to fix our roads. We see a lot of issues where we're going down south, and sometimes we have to drive on the opposite side of the road just so that because of the potholes are so large, and for so many years those areas are neglected. You know, also to address the issues of climate change, there are many villages in the south that during high tide, when we drive by, we already see that the ocean is coming onto the road. Even in some instances in Alahan, we see that there's a need for a seawall, and really there's no priority spent on what should be a priority, because there are many homes along the coast that are greatly impacted when there's a typhoon or just during a rise in the sea level. And so I think that this is a good provision. I ask my colleagues to support it. This ensures that the liquid fuel tax, or the Guam Highway Fund that is funded by the liquid fuel tax, goes directly to what it was intended to go to, and that is to the roads for our island. I humbly ask my colleagues for their support. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Vice Speaker. On the motion to the amendment, are there any objections? There being none, motion passes. Thank you. Are there any further questions on page 6? There being none, no further questions for page 6. Consider page 6 closed. We are now proceeding to page 7. Do we have any questions for page 7, section 6, which deals with A, B, C, and D? Senator Shelton.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I have a question about the debt service continuing appropriations. I'm wondering, Mr. Byrd, hopefully you can answer this question. If any of these bonds that we're paying down are in a similar situation as the airport bond that we recently we had our whole committee of the whole here to allow for the airport to go and refinance the bond. I'm wondering if any of these current bonds, especially the ones with some pretty high total interest charge, I'm seeing some at 5.5%, 6.9%, if any of these are, if we are able to refinance any of these and realize some savings for the government.
Thank you, Senator. We will be looking at that. Interest rates have been going down. They look as though they'll continue to go down. Up to a couple of months ago, it really wasn't an issue because interest rates were fairly stable. But interest, it looks as though the Federal Reserve will reduce interest rates, and so we will look at those that we can in the future.
Thank you, because I believe we were told that for the airport bond, we could see a savings of up to 3%. So these interest rates that we see at 6% or higher, if we can save up to half on those, we can see we could put a lot of that money to good use, I think, where we're trying to find $6 million right now for the University of Guam budget. It's a big chunk right there. So thank you, Mr. Byrne, and I look forward to working with you and your team further so that we can realize these savings. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other question? Any of my colleagues have any questions for Senator Moylan?
Just to make an amendment, but not based on the last statement from the
Okay,
previous
you have
speaker.
question on which section? Section 6, is it on A, B? We're going down the in order?
Oh, well, actually, Mr. Chairman, I just wish to make a amendment since we are on page 7 now, and this being the last section of the revenue summary. I'd like to make an amendment to add.
Do you have your amendment? Is it passed out? Can we?
We do
Can
have
we see
copies.
your
If we can
amendments?
kindly pass it out, please. Sorry. Thank you. Copies are made, Mr. Chairman. They're just going to distribute.
Point of information, Mr. Chair, where are we at? What amendment are we addressing?
We're addressing, we're on page 7, and is actually, I think the amendment that Senator Moylan will be proffering is right at line 7,
Line 7.
or right before the number 6, right? Or are you looking at debit service continuing appropriation? But I don't think your amendment is to do with debit service. You're looking at an item that deals with the authorization to pay and prioritize, which is section 3, 4, 5. So you would be right before 6. Am I correct? See, once, Senator Moylan, if we can see the amendment, we know where in page 6, 7
Okay.
we're looking at.
I'm wondering,
Can
do
we
have
get
all the
that passed
amendments?
out, Tom?
Yes. Yes.
No,
So the
we're down to
amendment,
6.
yeah.
We're at section 6.
So Sergeant
page
of
7.
Arms is passing out the amendment right now. So this is perfect time for this amendment being the last section of revenue summary.
So, Senator Moylan, if you could, has all our colleagues here gotten a copy of the amendment?
Sergeant of Arms is going around right now, Mr. Chair.
Let's give it a couple of seconds. No, his amendment is on line 8. I don't know why it's on page 7, which is actually, it's to add a new section. So it'll be right before 6,
Yes.
section 6. It's to add a new section.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Right.
Line
So,
8.
Has
page
has
7.
everybody got a copy already? Tom? Everybody's got a copy? Okay, Senator Moylan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After discussing with legal, it was the consensus that this will be a good opportunity to offer this amendment to line 8, page 7. The amendment to read is the business privilege tax reduction, notwithstanding any other provisions of the law, rule, or regulations, beginning on October 1st, 2020. The business privilege tax rate shall be 4%. Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, if I can offer further explanation. Okay.
You've already read your amendment, right?
Read the amendment, Mr. Wither.
Please talk about your amendment, and then I'll probably ask for a recess and speak with legal in reference to, as I asked the panel, the question is, it's budget 2020. You're asking for something to be in effect for budget 21. So that'll be the next question.
Right, effective October 1st, 2020, which will be FY, right, the following, not this.
It's, and that's what we'll just take a quick recess. We have returned from recess. Senator Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I'd just like to reiterate, the business privilege tax reduction is notwithstanding any of the provisions of the law, rule, or regulations, will be beginning on October 1st of 2020. The business privilege tax rate shall be 4%. Now, I know we've had a lot of discussion about this before, and this is something I brought up since January, initial inauguration, and there's been so much talk on this issue. And we've had a public hearing and for Bill 9, and that I think made a really strong statement, and it was a statement. We have small businesses come on out there and make all their statements. We have a lot of written testimony as well. We have the comments on social media that continue to make a statement and haven't stopped. Then we have the editorials in the media, and they are statements as well. And then, of course, we've had plenty of statements made during the 2018 election. So we know since last legislation that this BBT initially was not an increase that was supposed to be intended. It was supposed to sunset within 6 months. We know that. But then it changed, and then it changed to something called permanent, and we know that. And now the latest words to be adjusted on the BBT is something called forever, and we hear that. So I understand that, you know, we're talking on a budget that is now, right? And I'm saying we need to talk about it also for the future. And if we don't apply this in the beginning October 1st, 2020, when are we going to finally be talking about reducing the BBT back to 4%? Do we wait for the following fiscal year to start talking about it, or then we're going to be hearing it, oh, it's too late, there's not enough time? Or do we start now, just slowly planning and planning for it? So there's nothing wrong. I see as looking at this FY budget as a perfect opportunity to see how we're spending in this current budget so we can project where we're going to be in October 1st of 2020. And that's why I feel it's germane that we should introduce this amendment at this point, Mr. Chairman. And I appreciate my colleagues' opportunity to discuss this and take a vote on it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Moylan. On this amendment, my colleagues, I'm going to rule this non-germane. We're talking about Budget Act 2020. I understand you want to have a conversation about it for 2021, and we can have that after we settle with the Budget Act 2020. Okay?
Mr. Chairman, if I can ask for override on the decision and call for the vote, please.
Okay. Yes, you may.
Roll call, Mr. Chairman.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. Point of order.
Vice Speaker?
Yeah, I believe you already gavelled down on your order. I think that the previous speaker, the previous speaker needs to amend his request following your rule of order. That statement that was made earlier is incorrect.
Request a roll call, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Moylan?
Thank you for that. And yes, Mr. Chairman, I wish to restate my motion to override the chair.
On the motion,
Point of order, Mr. Chair.
yes, Vice Speaker?
That is still an incorrect motion.
Let's take a quick recess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to overrule the chair and request roll call,
Notwithstanding.
notwithstanding any.
Okay. You need two more?
Roll call.
Okay. Clerk?
Senator Castro. Senator Castro, aye. Senator Lee. Senator Lee, nay. Senator Marsh-Titano. Senator Marsh-Titano, nay. Senator Moylan. Senator Moylan, aye. Senator Munya. Senator Munya, aye. Speaker Munya Barnes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to excuse members not present at this time.
Any objection? None.
Speaker Munya Barnes, excused. Vice Speaker Nelson. Vice Speaker Nelson, aye. Senator Perez. Senator Perez, nay. Senator Rangel. Senator Rangel, nay. Senator San Augustine. Senator San Augustine, nay. Senator Shelton. Senator Shelton, nay. Senator Titagui. Senator Titagui, aye. Senator Pt.3. Senator Pt.3, excused. Senator Therese Terlahi. Senator Therese Terlahi, aye. Senator Torres. Senator Torres, nay.
My colleagues, the motion to overrule the chair, 6 ayes, 7 nays, 2 absent, 2 excused, motion fails. My colleagues, any question on page 7? We are already on section 6, A, B, C, D. Any questions? There being none, page 7 closes. We are now on page 8. Says, letter E. Any question on letter E? Any questions on letter F? Any questions on letter G? Any questions on letter H? There are no questions. Page 8 is closed. We are now on page 9. We're on letter I. Any questions on page 9? There being no question, page 9 is closed. Ma'am? Page 9, there's a letter I. General Obligation Series. Thank you. We are now on page 10. DOE tomorrow? Take a 1-minute recess. We have returned from recess. My colleagues, we will go ahead and recess until 9 o'clock, and we will begin with Chapter 2 at 9 a.m. Please be punctual, because we will start at 9. Thank you.
Mr.
And the agency director or heads, if any of the oversight or any of my colleagues want to call them, please invite them in. We will start at 9. On Chapter 2 is DOE, and then it just keeps going down the line. Yes, ma'am.
Mr.
Senator.
Chair, I just want to find out, I mean, is that for us to call them in, or is that you as the chair to call in who we would like?
I don't have no need for any of them, but if you're the oversight chair and you need them, then please call them and invite them to come, because I'll welcome them to participate.
Okay.
I already know what their budget requests are, and we've communicated with them. They're okay with that. So it's a matter of any other questions you may want to ask them.
Thank you, Mr.
All
Chair.
right? So we'll recess to 9 a.m.
Mr. Chair, before you gavel, okay. Mr. Chair, it's unusual that a senator, other than the chairman of OFB, to make these phone calls to these agencies, to call them in. And I request, Mr. Chair, that not only DOE, University of Guam, GCC, Public Health, and after Public Health, that these people be called in tomorrow. I do expect, Mr. Chair, that we have the opportunity, just like every senator who has an oversight of these committees had the opportunity too. Judiciary, as well as the other agencies, to come in tomorrow to discuss this budget. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So your request is what?
Shall I go down the line again, Mr. Chair?
No. What is your request, Senator
My
Tello?
request is that OFB, as the oversight chair of this budget, should be making these phone calls. And as, you know, I ask that you make these calls to DOE, UOG.
Okay, you're just listing down the agencies. So,
Yes.
so we'll request from the OFB and DOA to make the phone calls with the agency heads, and if they choose to come down based on what's on their budget, then they'll come down, then we'll entertain them from there.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Torres?
For clarification, the various budget hearings, are there reports on all the budget hearings and the budget submissions by each agency available on the website?
Yes.
Okay, so I can stay up all night and read each and every one if I had a question about the different sections, and anyone listening can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure that I had
All right,
reference.
Senator Lee?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I think it's important that maybe a representative from DOE come down. They are a lion's share of the government of Guam budget. It's important that we have them present to ask questions, but I am concerned about inviting all of the agency heads to be here, waiting at our beck and call while we're in budget discussions. We're not sure how long it's going to take with DOE, so I think it's important that if there are particular agencies that we would like to have present, maybe some of the larger agencies, maybe Guam Memorial Hospital or DPHSS, that's fine once we get to that at that point. But it doesn't make sense to me personally to have these agency heads just waiting here while we may or may not ask questions. So I think it's important that we invite folks from DOE tomorrow and we can begin our discussion with them, and
Yes.
so we can proceed that way. Thank you.
All right, we'll begin with Senator Clinton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I too am concerned about bringing in agencies that have already, especially if they've already had a public hearing. That's the purpose of the public hearing process in the first place, is to hear from these agencies. I don't think we should be doubling up on our work. The reason we're in the committee of the whole is to hear specifically from fiscal people, from the administration, from Department of Administration, BBMR, and the like. That's the purpose of committee of the whole, is to hear from them about the numbers, not to rehash public hearings that have already been had.
Point of
All right,
information,
thank you.
Mr. Chair. Point of
Stand by,
information.
Senator Tello. Just hold on. I will hear you. Mr. Carlson would like to speak in reference to line agencies. Mr. Carlson, Lester?
I've communicated with the governor, and if there are any questions with the agency, the line agency budgets, she's comfortable with them. I see no need for them to make an appearance here.
Point of information, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Tello now.
This is the third rendition of the budget bill. From the time that you had these public hearings and oversights, we're on the third rendition.
Okay.
It is imperative that we have the opportunity to speak to these agencies to find out if these changes are conducive to their agency, if they're able to survive with this amount that was appropriated to their agency. Mr. Chair, as long as I've known, we've always had the opportunity to be able to speak to agencies. They stand there with their hand up swearing in so that when we ask a question, we know we're getting the truth from them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Lester, I think you need to just clarify exactly your statement. What agencies are you referring to?
The executive line agencies have agreed with the budget numbers contained in Bill 186. There's no need to bring them here.
We will recess until 9 o'clock, beginning with Chapter 2, Department of Education. 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.